Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon to the teachers, judges, and my fellow friends. My name is Lina Amizah and I'm your last speaker of the day. And I hope you are able to bear with me. So, my topic for today is about schizophrenia. Now, this mental illness has been around for quite some time, but it has started to become more prominent in recent years. This mental illness has been depicted in a movie called A Beautiful Mind. Then again, movies tend to exaggerate, however, some parts seem to be quite reliable. To a certain extent, that is. Despite it being a common illness, schizophrenia tends to be surrounded by myths. However, with the help of advanced technology and the studies conducted by diligent psychologists, the world of psychology is able to decipher areas that may affect and contribute to the development of schizophrenia. Without further ado, I'll start. So, schizophrenia. What is schizophrenia? Schizophrenia is known to be a mental illness. It is famously known for the experience of psychosis. And it is, in definition, it is known as gradual deterioration or disintegration of the process of thinking and emotional responsiveness. And it affects 1 in every 100. By taking the US as an example, schizophrenia occurs in about 1% of the general US population. That means that more than 3 million Americans suffer from this illness. Schizophrenia strikes without regard to gender, race, social class, or culture. Throughout history, the disorder we now know as schizophrenia has been a source of bewilderment. Those suffering from the illness once were thought to be possessed by demons and were feared, tormented, exiled, and locked up forever. In spite of advances in understanding of its causes, course, and treatment, schizophrenia continues to confound both health professionals and the public. It is easier for the average person to cope with the idea of cancer than it is to understand the odd behavior, hallucinations, or strange ideas of the person with this condition. Although schizophrenia is a common illness, there has been some myths surrounding the illness that causes a misunderstanding between the illness and society. One of those myths is people with schizophrenia have multiple personalities. Now, according to a 2008 survey by the National Alliance on Mental Illness, NAMI, 64% of the population is unable to recognize the symptoms associated with schizophrenia, and instead simply believe that people with this disorder have split or multiple personalities. This is false. Schizophrenia often involves a variety of symptoms, but not one involves multiple personalities. This myth likely originated from the word schizo, which means split. A fun fact right there. However, in this case, it refers to gaps in a person's ability to think and express emotions. Another fun fact, people with split personalities are living in dissociative identity disorder. The second one would be schizophrenia only involves delusions and hallucinations. Now, many people incorrectly believe that individuals with schizophrenia only suffer from hallucinations and delusions. This is not surprising. Psychotic symptoms are unusual and often frightening, and so popular culture focuses on these more than other symptoms associated with schizophrenia. Along with delusions and hallucinations though, individuals with schizophrenia may experience blunted emotions, low motivations, disorganized speech and behavior, and a lack of desire to form social relationships. They also can have difficulty maintaining attention and performing certain cognitive tasks. There are actually different types of schizophrenia. One would be disorganized schizophrenia, which is characterized by disorganized speech and behavior, flat affect, and very little hallucinations and delusions. Second would be catatonic schizophrenia, which is characterized by disturbances in movement, which is the muscle rigidity and immobility. Third would be undifferentiated schizophrenia. A person is only diagnosed as undifferentiated when their symptoms do not meet the criteria from other categories of schizophrenia, but they are still experiencing affected in thoughts and behavior. Fourth would be paranoid schizophrenia, which has an experience of auditory hallucinations and delusions. However, individuals experiencing paranoid schizophrenia tend to be more functional in their daily life. Last but not least would be simple schizophrenia, which is characterized by individuals' gradual withdrawal from society. Moving on from there, based on research, it is claimed that symptoms of schizophrenia usually start between ages of 16 and 30, which in this case is around late adolescence and to early adulthood. So, to be diagnosed with schizophrenia, according to the latest version of the DSM, which is DSM-5, to be diagnosed with schizophrenia, the individual has to show at least 2 or more of the following symptoms for at least 1 month. One of those symptoms would be delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, disorganized or catatonic behavior, and other symptoms that cause social or occupational dysfunction, which means a disturbance in lifestyle for at least 6 months. And no evidence of medical factors causing behavior, which rules out other disorders. Now, the symptoms of schizophrenia fall into 3 categories. First would be the positive symptoms. Positive symptoms are behaviors not generally seen in healthy people. People with positive symptoms may lose touch with some aspects of reality. Those symptoms include hallucinations and delusions. Second would be this negative syndrome. Symptoms. Negative symptoms are associated with disruptions to normal emotions and behaviors. These symptoms include flat affect and reduced feelings of pleasure in everyday life. Now, flat affect means reduced expression of emotion via facial expression or voice tone. And third would be the cognitive symptoms. For some patients, the cognitive symptoms of schizophrenia are subtle, but for others they are more severe, and patients may notice changes in their memory or other aspects of thinking. Symptoms include poor executive functioning and trouble focusing or paying attention. The causes of schizophrenia, like all mental disorders, are not completely understood or known at this time. There is no known single cause of schizophrenia. Many diseases, such as heart disease, result from an interplay of genetic, behavioral, and other factors, and this may be the case for schizophrenia as well. Here are some of the questions that are frequently related to the causes of schizophrenia. Can schizophrenia be inherited? And is schizophrenia caused by a physical abnormality in the brain? By using a biological explanation, taking on the genetics theory, we'll breeze through the twin studies. Okay, It has been long understood that schizophrenia runs in families. People who have close relatives with schizophrenia are more likely to develop the disorder than people who have no relatives with the illness. So this is under the genetics theory. It is said that there is a link between genes and schizophrenia. So what does this mean? It means that, like I said earlier, people who have close relatives with schizophrenia will have a higher risk of developing schizophrenia. Therefore, the closer the relative, the more similar the genes, the higher the risk. To support this claim, we will look at the evidence from the twin studies. From Gottesman and Shields 1972, they took on a twin study to explore this explanation. They analyzed records of 57 schizophrenic twins between 1948 and 1964, in which 40% are monozygotic twins, which means they are identical twins, and 60% of dizygotic twins, which are non-identical twins. As a result, there is a concordance rate of 48% in monozygotic twins and 9% in dizygotic twins. This shows that the more similar the genes, the higher the chance of sharing the same condition. Therefore, in conclusion to the genetics view, Scientists are continuing to study and better understand the genetic factor related to schizophrenia. We inherit our genes from both our parents. Scientists believe several genes are associated with an increased risk of schizophrenia, but that no gene causes the disease by itself. However, it is not yet understood how the genetic predisposition is transmitted, and it cannot yet be accurately predicted whether a given person will or will not develop the disorder. In addition, it probably takes more than genes to cause the disorder. Scientists think interactions between genes and the environment are necessary for schizophrenia to develop. Many environmental factors may be involved, such as exposure, viral infections, malnutrition, or problems during birth, and other not yet known psychosocial factors. Sorry. Next would be how biology and schizophrenia relate by using the brain structure. Now, there have been dramatic advances in neuroimaging technology that permits scientists to study brain structure and function in living individuals. Many studies of people with schizophrenia have found abnormalities in brain structure. In some small but potentially important ways, the brains of people with schizophrenia look different than those of healthy people. For example, fluid-filled is around here. Yeah. For example, fluid-filled cavities at the center of the brain, called ventricles, are larger in some people with schizophrenia. The brains of people with the illness also tend to have less gray matter, and some areas of the brain may have less or more activity. In other studies, investigators using Therefore, it should be emphasized that these abnormalities are quite subtle and are not characteristic of all people with schizophrenia, nor do they occur only in individuals with this illness. For the finale, we will be looking at the treatments to schizophrenia. Because the causes of schizophrenia are still unknown, treatments focus on eliminating the symptoms of the disease instead. Therefore, we will be looking at the biological treatment under biochemical, other known as antipsychotics, which is drugs. Biochemical treatment is also known as drug therapy. This is used to treat disorders such as schizophrenia and are called antipsychotic drugs. It is a primary treatment for schizophrenia. Now, the use of biochemicals is very common in the treatment of schizophrenia and has gone through a number of phases. The first antipsychotics were produced in the 1950s called phenothiazines. And under phenothiazines, the first such drug produced was chlorpromazine, which has a powerful calming effect and was known as a chemical lobotomy. Other phenothiazines act as tranquilizers, sedating the patient and relieving the symptoms of psychosis, such as delusions and hallucinations. The second generation of drug treatments were the atypical antipsychotics, which act mainly by blocking dopamine receptors. They also reduce many side effects of the first generation drugs. The third generation drugs, which is aripiprazole, are thought to reduce susceptibility to metabolic side effects associated with the second generation atypical antipsychotics. Therefore, in conclusion of my presentation today, with improvements being made in the treatments in schizophrenia, there might be a chance to find a cure of it all. However, as development may be slow and unsure, though the development may be slow or uncertain, however, the ability to understand the schizophrenic's perspective will be the greatest achievement of them all. Therefore, I end my speech right now. Thank you very much.
Session.
Thank you, Lina. My question is, can schizophrenia be managed without drug treatment? How do you, for instance, if someone is schizophrenic, how do you make sure that they take the drugs, that they want to take drugs? So is it possible to not use drugs?
in all honesty, like I've said in my slides before, for the most common treatment to schizophrenia had to be the antipsychotics. However, certain patients some patients may not be able to withstand the intake of drugs in their system, considering the fact that these drugs are the reason why they are able to, the drugs are the reason why they have lessened, the symptoms are lessened. Therefore, there are other types of treatments to schizophrenia, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, where they, unfortunately, they do include drugs, but they included a possible therapy, they do include a therapy session with the schizophrenics, in which they believe it is able to help the patients to want to take the drugs, in a certain sense that they have the backup of their loved ones and all that. So that's my conclusion.
Okay. And so from your talk, I'm getting that schizophrenia is kind of a spectrum. You get really severe schizophrenia and not so severe. How does the doctor decide the cutoff point to which medication will be prescribed? Which medication is given? So how do you say this person is bad enough that drugs will be given, and this person is not so bad, they don't need drugs?
No, wait. Why is it so long? Come on. Is it so many slides? Oh wait, is it? Okay. Actually, like I said, they do, to diagnose a schizophrenic, they have to be looked at accordance to the DSM-5, which is the book where all disorders are diagnosed to a certain extent. And then again, they all said that to be able to be categorized as a schizophrenic, they have to show 2 or more of the following symptoms for at least 1 month. And these symptoms include the delusions, hallucinations, disorganized speech, and disorganized or catatonic behavior. Therefore, to be able to say that I'm going to give you the drugs right now, is it that one? Yeah. To be able to say that I'm going to give you the drugs right now, they have to follow in accordance of what the DSM-5 has said to be able to be prescribed.
Hi Lina, so just one question. You talked about brain structure earlier, right?
Yes.
What do you think is the link between brain structure and the symptoms of schizophrenia, such as, let's say, disorganized speech? What's the connection?
Sorry. It's been a long day, people. Alright. Actually, according to my unfortunate, slightly insufficient research, but I hope it's sufficient enough to answer the question. Apparently, the link to brain structure and schizophrenia comes from the fact that it is mostly concentrated on the where's the ventricle? Oh yeah, it is mainly concentrated on the ventricle, which possibly provides which probably provides a neurotransmitter to the messages, for example, to the messages. Therefore, the link is that in whatever that is severe from the ventricle, it may pass probably around certain functions of the brain that is in charge of certain executive functions, for example, decision making or possibly speaking. In your context is disorganized speech. Therefore, whatever is affected from here would probably be linked to the behaviors produced by the person itself. Thanks, Miss.